When we talk about acne, most people jump straight to products, treatments, or the latest ingredient that everyone swears will fix their skin overnight. But the truth is, before any routine can work, you have to understand what your skin is actually dealing with. Acne doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's a combination of tiny daily triggers, quiet internal changes, and habits we barely notice. And once you really understand those root causes, the entire journey toward clearer skin becomes less frustrating and a lot more predictable. Everything begins inside the pore. It's a small opening, but it's a busy place. Each pore houses a sebaceous gland that produces oil. That oil isn't the enemy. Your skin needs it to stay flexible and protected. Problems start when the balance is thrown off. Maybe the skin produces a little too much oil, maybe dead skin cells aren't shedding properly, or maybe something irritates the surface and kicks the pore into overdrive. When that mix thickens inside the pore, it becomes a plug. That plug is what eventually turns into a blackhead or a whitehead, but it doesn't stop there. Once the pore gets clogged, bacteria that naturally live on the skin can multiply more quickly in that trapped environment. The immune system notices, rushes in to help, and suddenly you have redness, swelling, tenderness, everything that makes a simple pimple turn into a full-on breakout. Hormones play their own major role too. They don't just influence mood or energy, they directly influence the skin's oil glands. That's why so many people see flare-ups during certain times of the month, during periods of stress, or during big transitions in life. When hormones fluctuate, oil production rises. When oil rises, pores clog faster. And when pores clog faster, acne becomes more stubborn, more repetitive, and more widespread than before. Then there are the habits we don't realize are contributing. Touching the face without thinking, picking at early bumps because they might be ready, not washing hands before applying skincare, sleeping with makeup, over scrubbing because it feels clean, using random products because someone on the internet said they worked. It all adds up. Skin isn't fragile, but it is reactive. And the smallest repeated irritation can become a long-term pattern of breakouts if it happens often enough. Even products meant to help can accidentally make things worse. Heavy creams, comedogenic makeup, rough exfoliators, and harsh cleansers can keep the cycle going. When the barrier is damaged, the skin overcompensates by producing even more oil to protect itself. That oil gets trapped in pores that are already irritated, and the cycle keeps spinning. Many people think acne is just about bacteria, but it's also about inflammation. When the skin is inflamed, everything, pores, oil glands, immune response, becomes more reactive, and acne becomes easier to trigger. Diet and stress round out the bigger picture. While food alone doesn't cause acne, certain choices can influence hormones and inflammation. High glycemic foods spike insulin levels, which can push oil glands into overdrive. Dairy can do something similar for some people. And stress, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, releases cortisol, which again nudges oil glands to produce more. None of these things act alone, but together they paint a complete picture of why acne feels so unpredictable. It's not random, it's a web of internal and external influences that all affect the skin in their own way. Understanding these pieces isn't meant to overwhelm you, it's meant to empower you, because once you see how acne forms, you start to recognize your own patterns. You start to understand why some days your skin is calm and other days it flares up without warning. You begin to realize that breakouts aren't a sign of dirty skin, laziness, or poor hygiene. They're simply the skin reacting to its environment, its routine, and its internal rhythms. And when you understand the cause, you can finally choose solutions that actually work for your specific situation, instead of throwing random treatments at the problem and hoping something sticks. Clear skin doesn't come from guessing, it comes from understanding. And once you understand what your skin is telling you, everything you do next becomes 10 times more effective. A deep cleansing routine isn't about scrubbing harder or washing your face until it squeaks. It's about creating a rhythm your skin can rely on. Something steady, gentle, and consistent enough to keep pores clear without pushing the skin into irritation. Most people don't realize that cleansing is the foundation of everything that follows. The right routine can make your treatments work better, help your skin stay balanced throughout the day, and keep those tiny hidden clogs from turning into tomorrow's breakouts. And the wrong routine, even if it feels satisfying in the moment, can quietly set the stage for more congestion, more inflammation, and more frustration. Everything starts with understanding what your skin actually needs at the end of the day. Even if you don't wear makeup, your skin picks up oil, sweat, pollution, sunscreen, and microscopic debris that cling to the surface. If they're not properly removed, they settle into the pores and mix with dead skin cells, creating the perfect environment for blackheads and bumps. That's why a deep cleansing routine isn't optional, it's essential. But essential doesn't mean complicated, it just means intentional. A good routine begins with a cleanser that respects your skin barrier, something that lifts impurities without stripping the skin dry. When that barrier is healthy, your pores stay calmer, your oil production stays steadier, and your acne becomes easier to manage. When that barrier is damaged, everything becomes more unpredictable. You might feel tightness, stinging, or that strange combination of oily and dry at the same time. That's the skin signaling that something in your routine isn't working for it. One of the most effective ways to start a deep cleanse is by using a gentle oil-based cleanser or balm. People often get confused here. Why use oil if your skin already feels oily? The answer is simple. Oil dissolves oil. An oil-based cleanser melts down sunscreen, stubborn debris, and sebum much more efficiently than harsh scrubbing ever could. When you follow with a water-based cleanser, the skin ends up clean without ever being irritated. This method, often called double cleansing, gives the skin the reset it needs, especially at night. Technique matters just as much as the product you choose. Cleansing shouldn't be rushed. The skin responds better when you take your time, allow the cleanser to break down surface buildup, and massage it in circular motions to encourage better circulation. That gentle motion brings blood flow to the surface, softens keratin plugs, and helps loosen congestion before it becomes visible. When people scrub aggressively or use rough cloths and exfoliating brushes, the skin goes into defense mode, producing more oil and becoming more inflamed. Temperature also plays a part. Hot water feels relaxing, but it can strip your skin faster than you think. Lukewarm water is ideal. It opens the pores just enough to help release buildup, but protects the skin's natural oils so the barrier stays intact. And when you finish, always pat dry instead of rubbing. It's the little things that add up over time. A deep cleansing routine also means knowing what not to do. Over-cleansing is just as problematic as not cleansing enough. Washing too frequently can dry out the skin, forcing it to produce more oil to compensate. More oil means more clogged pores, and suddenly what started as being thorough becomes a cycle that keeps feeding breakouts. Twice a day is usually enough for most people, with the nighttime cleanse being the most important. Then there are the exfoliants. These are powerful tools when used correctly, but they can be dangerous when used impulsively. Chemical exfoliants like salicylic acid help remove dead skin cells inside the pores, making them fantastic for acne-prone skin, but they work best in moderation. When used too often, they weaken the barrier and create irritation that can look a lot like breakouts. Physical exfoliants, scrubs with rough particles, can scratch the skin, trigger inflammation, and leave the skin more vulnerable. A deep cleansing routine doesn't need to feel aggressive to be effective. It needs to be consistent. The beauty of a good cleansing routine is that it prepares your skin to actually absorb the ingredients that come next. When the pores are clear and the surface is balanced, serums penetrate better, treatments work more efficiently, and the overall skin environment becomes less favorable for new breakouts. A clean, calm canvas makes every step that follows stronger. It's incredible how often acne improves simply by adjusting the cleansing routine, by switching to something gentler, taking the time to cleanse properly, or removing the tiny habits that accidentally irritate the skin. When your skin feels understood, it behaves differently. It becomes steadier, less reactive, and more cooperative. Deep cleansing isn't about doing more, it's about doing it right. And when you get it right, your skin responds in ways you can actually see. When it comes to extractions and pore care, a lot of people imagine the process as something forceful or aggressive, like the goal is to push, squeeze, and fight the skin until it finally gives up whatever is stuck inside. But the reality is the complete opposite. True extraction is about patience, timing, and understanding what the skin is ready to release. When you rush the process or try to force a clog out before it's time, that's when things go wrong. Redness sticks around longer, swelling becomes more noticeable, and the risk of scarring increases. The skin has a rhythm, and if you work with it rather than against it, you can keep pores clear without leaving any trace behind. Blackheads and clogged pores form slowly. They don't appear overnight, and they don't disappear that quickly either. Inside the pore, oil mixes with dead skin cells and thickens over time, forming a plug that gradually reaches the surface. When that plug oxidizes, it turns dark and becomes what we often see as a blackhead. Because it forms layer by layer, removing it should feel just as gradual. That's why softening the skin is the first and most important step. Warmth, steam, and hydration loosen the buildup inside the pore, making extraction easier and safer. When the skin is dry, tight, or irritated, the plug becomes harder and more stubborn, and that's when improper squeezing can tear the pore or lead to inflammation. One of the biggest mistakes people make is digging at blackheads with their nails or using tools without knowing how much pressure is too much. Nails cause scratches, dents, and microscopic trauma that can invite bacteria deeper into the pore. Comedone extractors, when used incorrectly, create pressure that bruises the skin. And once the skin is traumatized, even the cleanest extraction can turn into a lingering red mark that sticks around for weeks. Safe extraction is never about force, it's about preparation. The pore must be ready, the skin must be softened, and the technique must be controlled. Another part people often overlook is that not every clogged pore is meant to be extracted by hand. Some bumps look like blackheads, but are actually closed comedones sitting under the surface. These don't have an opening yet, and trying to squeeze them only pushes the blockage deeper. What they need is time, chemical exfoliation, and a gradual loosening of the cells around the pore. Once the structure softens, they rise to the surface more naturally, and at that point, extraction becomes safer and far more effective. Knowing the difference between what is ready and what needs more time is what prevents scarring and keeps the skin smooth. After the extraction, the story isn't over. Post-care is just as important as the actual removal. When a pore is freshly emptied, it's temporarily more vulnerable. A gentle, balancing toner, a calming serum, or a light layer of a non-comedogenic moisturizer helps the skin settle. Ingredients like niacinamide, salicylic acid, or soothing botanicals can keep the pore clear and calm, preventing new buildup from settling right back inside. It's also important to avoid touching the area or checking it repeatedly in the mirror, because even a little irritation can interrupt the healing process. And then there's consistency. Extractions alone won't keep the skin clear long term. They need to be part of a cycle that includes cleansing, exfoliation, and maintenance. When the skin is cared for regularly, buildup doesn't have the chance to harden deep inside the pore. Treatments can reach deeper, the skin stays calmer, and extractions, when needed, become easier, quicker, and far less frequent. It's not about chasing every single blackhead. It's about breaking the cycle that causes them to keep coming back. What people often realize too late is that aggressive extraction leads to a temporary victory but long-term problems. Gentle extraction, timed correctly, creates long-term clarity, and when you protect the skin during the process, before, during, and after, you prevent the scars, the redness, and the irritation that so many people associate with pore clearing. Safe extraction isn't dramatic, and it's rarely flashy, but it's incredibly effective when done right. It's about patience, technique, and respect for the skin's natural pace. When you move with that pace, the skin rewards you every single time. Active ingredients are where science really steps in to support everything you're doing on the surface. Cleansing might clear the way and extractions might free the pores, but active ingredients are what change the skin from the inside out. They work beyond what the eye can see, shifting how the pores behave, calming inflammation, speeding up cell turnover, and preventing the same blockages from forming all over again. When you understand what each ingredient does, it becomes much easier to build a routine that not only treats acne, but keeps it from coming back with the same intensity. One of the most important ingredients for acne-prone skin is salicylic acid. It's oil-soluble, which means it doesn't just sit on the surface. It slips inside the pores, loosening the buildup that leads to blackheads, whiteheads, and deep congestion. It's like sending a tiny broom into each pore, sweeping out what doesn't belong. But what makes it even more effective is that it's also anti-inflammatory. It calms the redness and soft swelling that often accompany breakouts, so the skin doesn't look as angry even while healing. When used consistently, salicylic acid helps keep pores clear long before they ever reach the extraction stage. It's one of those ingredients that works quietly but reliably, and the skin responds well to that kind of steady support. Then there's benzoyl peroxide, which people either love or fear. It's strong, yes, but its strength has a purpose. Unlike salicylic acid, which clears the pore, benzoyl peroxide targets the bacteria that contribute to inflammation. It oxygenates the pore, creating an environment where acne-causing bacteria simply can't survive. And when the bacteria are under control, the size, tenderness, and duration of breakouts shrink dramatically. It's especially helpful for those deeper throbbing bumps that feel like they're sitting under the skin for days. But because it can be drying, it's all about the right concentration and the right frequency. Used wisely, it's one of the most powerful tools for preventing new acne from forming. Retinoids operate on a different level entirely. They don't just address acne, they teach the skin how to renew itself more efficiently. Retinoids encourage faster cell turnover, meaning the dead cells that normally clog pores are shed before they have a chance to build up. They also help smooth texture, fade dark marks, and refine pore appearance over time. For many people, retinoids become the ingredient that transforms their skin the most, because the effects are long-term rather than temporary, but they require patience. The skin often goes through an adjustment phase, and it's important to start slowly, allow the skin to adapt, and be consistent. The payoff is worth it, because once the skin adjusts, retinoids create a foundation of clarity that's hard to achieve with anything else. Niacinamide is another quiet hero. It won't exfoliate, it won't strip, and it doesn't cause irritation when used properly. Instead, it strengthens the skin barrier, reduces inflammation, balances oil production, and minimizes the appearance of enlarged pores. It's like the peacekeeper of a routine. When everything else is working hard, cleansers, exfoliants, treatments, niacinamide steps in to keep the skin calm and stable. For acne, that stability is essential because irritated skin reacts faster, breaks out more often, and takes longer to recover. A calm barrier is a strong barrier, and a strong barrier heals more efficiently. Sulfur is another option people often overlook. It has a natural ability to dry out excess oil, calm inflammation, and reduce the size of active breakouts without being as harsh as some of the more aggressive treatments. It can be especially helpful for those deep, tender bumps that need a little push to come to the surface. And because it's antibacterial and oil absorbing, it's a useful ingredient for people who experience stubborn flare-ups along the jawline or cheeks. The key to working with active ingredients is not to use everything at once. Acne makes people feel desperate, and desperation leads to overloading the skin with too many treatments too quickly. But skin doesn't improve through intensity, it improves through consistency. Choose a few ingredients that address your specific needs, introduce them gradually, and let them work. Your skin doesn't need a full arsenal, it needs the right tools used at the right time in the right way. When active ingredients are chosen thoughtfully, they guide the skin into a healthier rhythm, one where pores stay clearer, breakouts become less frequent, and the overall texture improves. They're not about forcing the skin into submission, they're about supporting it so it can function the way it's meant to. Great skin doesn't happen by accident, it happens through intention. Lifestyle plays a much bigger role in acne than most people want to believe. It's understandable, changing habits feels harder than changing products, and it's tempting to blame everything on something surface level because that feels easier to fix. But the truth is, your skin reacts to what happens inside your body just as much as it reacts to what you apply on top of it. When your daily habits support your skin, everything else in your routine becomes more effective. When they don't, even the best products can only do so much. Stress is one of the most underestimated triggers. It doesn't have to be dramatic or overwhelming. Even subtle constant stress nudges the body to produce more cortisol. That hormone doesn't just influence mood, it directly stimulates oil glands. More oil means more buildup inside the pores, and more buildup means breakouts that seem to appear out of nowhere. A lot of people notice that their skin gets worse during exams, deadlines, arguments, or big life changes, but they don't connect the dots. The skin listens to the body, and when the body is under pressure, the skin shows it. Managing stress isn't about eliminating it, it's about giving the mind and body enough recovery that the skin doesn't pay the price. Sleep is another piece of that puzzle. When you don't sleep well, the skin doesn't repair properly, inflammation rises, healing slows, and hormones fluctuate more easily. That combination creates the perfect environment for acne to flare up and linger longer. Something as simple as getting a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up around the same time can dramatically change how quickly your skin recovers from breakouts. Good sleep makes treatments work better. Poor sleep makes even mild acne harder to calm. Food is a sensitive topic because people often hear it as blame or judgment, but it's not about restriction. It's about awareness. Not every food affects every person the same way. Some people notice that dairy triggers breakouts, especially along the lower face. Others find that high glycemic foods, things like white bread, sugary snacks, or processed carbs lead to more oiliness and deeper inflamed bumps. These foods can spike insulin, which then spikes hormones that influence oil glands. And again, more oil equals more opportunity for pores to clog. The goal isn't to eliminate everything you enjoy, it's simply to observe your patterns. When you start noticing which foods your skin reacts to, you can adjust without feeling deprived. Gentle changes often lead to meaningful improvements. Hydration also matters more than people imagine. Dehydrated skin becomes dull, tight, and less resilient. When the skin lacks water, it compensates by producing more oil to protect itself, and that extra oil sits in the pores on top of whatever debris is already there. Drinking enough water won't cure acne, but staying hydrated gives the skin the flexibility and balance it needs to function properly. When the skin is hydrated, it heals faster, reacts less, and stays calmer throughout the day. Then there are the small, everyday habits that seem harmless but quietly make things worse. Touching the face without thinking, pressing the phone against the cheek during long calls, wearing hats or helmets that trap sweat and bacteria along the hairline, using pillowcases that haven't been washed recently, sweating during a workout and waiting hours before cleansing. These little actions add up, and they don't just contribute to acne, they often make it recurring. Fixing them doesn't require major effort, just awareness. Clean pillowcases, clean hands, clean phone screens, and quick post-workout rinses can make more difference than people expect. Even hair products play a role. Oils, heavy conditioners, pomades, and styling creams can migrate onto the forehead, temples, and cheeks. Once those ingredients settle into the pores, they create a layer that's tough to remove with a regular cleanse. That's why people sometimes break out around the hairline or sides of the face without realizing the cause. Choosing lighter products or keeping hair away from the face can reverse that pattern surprisingly quickly. Lifestyle isn't about perfection, it's about being mindful. When your daily habits support your skin, your acne routine finally has room to work the way it should. The clearer your internal environment is, the more predictable your external results become. Every choice creates either friction or flow, and the more flow you create, the easier everything becomes. Small habits shape the skin far more than most people think, and when those habits work in your favor, progress becomes unavoidable. Long-term maintenance is the part of the acne journey that most people underestimate. In the beginning, there's motivation, excitement, and a sense of urgency. You want results fast, you want breakouts gone, and you're willing to commit to anything that feels like progress. But once the skin starts improving, once the breakouts get smaller or less frequent, that's when consistency becomes even more important. Clear skin isn't something you achieve once and hold on to forever. It's something you maintain through rhythm, awareness, and gentle, ongoing care. And the most empowering thing is realizing that long-term clarity isn't about doing more. It's about keeping what works and adjusting with intention. When you finally reach a point where breakouts aren't dominating your day, the temptation is to ease up. Maybe you skip your nighttime cleanse here and there, or stop using the ingredients that helped get you clear in the first place. Maybe you think you graduated from your routine, but skin has memory. It remembers patterns. And if the habits that supported your progress disappear, the pores eventually return to the same cycle of buildup and inflammation. Maintenance isn't punishment, it's protection. It's the gentle continuation of everything that got you to a healthier place. A big part of maintaining clear skin is learning to listen, really listen to what your skin does in different conditions. You start to notice how your pores react when you sleep less, or when you're stressed, or when the weather shifts. Maybe you see that colder months make your skin drier, which means you need a little more moisture to keep the barrier strong. Maybe warmer months make you oilier, so you lean into lighter formulas or adjust how often you exfoliate. Long-term clarity isn't about having the same routine forever. It's about responding to what your skin needs in the moment with patience instead of panic. One of the most useful habits is checking in with your skin weekly instead of daily. Daily changes can be misleading. One new bump can make you think something is wrong with your routine. But weekly patterns tell the truth. Is your skin producing more oil than usual? Are you seeing small clogged pores forming more frequently? Is your texture changing? These little signals guide you. They help you decide if you need to introduce more exfoliation, take a break, increase hydration, or adjust an active ingredient. It becomes less about fighting acne and more about understanding it before it starts. Another part of maintenance is pacing your treatments. Not everything needs to be used at full strength forever. Sometimes you start with frequent salicylic acid or benzoyl peroxide to control breakouts, but once your skin stabilizes, you can step down to a few times a week. Retinoids may begin at lower concentrations and move higher gradually, but there's always a balance between progress and comfort. You're not trying to overwhelm your skin. You're trying to support it in staying clear with the least irritation possible. What truly keeps acne from coming back is a strong skin barrier. When that barrier is healthy, your skin becomes more resilient. It handles stress better, it heals faster, and it's less reactive to little triggers that used to cause flare-ups. Using moisturizers consistently, even if your skin is oily, keeps that barrier flexible. Protecting your skin from the sun prevents inflammation that lingers deep in the pores. Washing gently maintains balance instead of stripping it away. These simple steps aren't dramatic, but they make everything else you do more effective. And then there's the mental part. Once your skin is clearer, sometimes the fear of breaking out again becomes stronger than the breakouts themselves. That fear can make you jump from product to product or panic at the smallest blemish. But part of long-term maintenance is trusting your routine, trusting that a single bump is just a bump, trusting that your skin doesn't need drastic changes every time it reacts, trusting that consistency will always outperform urgency. When you treat your skin with patience instead of fear, you give it the space to stay calm. The truth is, acne doesn't disappear in one dramatic moment. It fades gradually as you build habits that support your skin's natural balance. And the more you maintain that balance, the more those flare-ups lose their power. You don't get clear skin by chance, and you don't keep it by accident. You keep it through small choices, steady habits, and an understanding that long-term clarity is built, not wished for.